that should be live now. Oof. And hopefully, I'm like worried now. Yep, there we go. There we go. We good. All good. Splendid. Okay. Hello. Hello. You see vertical. Heck yeah. Wonderful. Okay, as I was saying, we're going to be reading more of The Secret of the Old Clock. Hi, Faolkor. Hello, Vertical Squad. Heck yeah. We got through like several chapters last time. We made really good progress. Probably won't read as many chapters tonight. Tuesdays are not usually as long because this is my second stream of the day. So, yeah, if you are watching this and not part of the Twitch crew, on Tuesdays, I do a co-working stream in the afternoon over on Twitch. And then I take a couple hours off and then I come back for this. So the Tuesday evening streams tend to be a bit shorter. They're still like 3 or 4 hours long, but less chance of going like 5 or 6 hours. So. Oh, Fidge, what? What are you saying? Are you saying what I think you're saying? You are, Fidge. That is inappropriate content to put on my YouTube stream. Move on. You can't just retract your message. Watching my streams will not give you spontaneous puss. It won't happen. You won't just magically grow a vagina. I'm sorry. If I had that power, I would happily, hand out. Anyways, so no, I had a creepy professor in English class, in my like a first year English class in university, who dressed like an old anorexic cowboy with a big like handlebar mustache, and he read us like ancient erotic poetry and definitely talked about cooches and called them the old vertical smile. So that's what I think of when I see that phrase, because that was such a horrific thing to listen to as like a 19-year-old in university. Yeah, it was creepy. There you go. Okay, anyway, damn it, Fidge, I'm trying to be professional on YouTube. This is supposed to be Twitch only banter. I'm supposed to have my shit together. I mean, my stuff. I'm supposed to be more together on YouTube. You're ruining the facade. You're the illusion of professionalism. So we're reading a book. We're about to start chapter 18. We can fix that in post. Fix you with a post. Nancy Drew had this wonderful idea to break into the Topham summer cottage, where she found out that they had put a lot of Josiah Crowley's old furniture that they didn't want to get rid of. They definitely wanted to hoard it all, but also it wasn't as fashionable as they liked for their main house, so it went to their summer home. Nancy Drew pretended to go to a girls' summer camp for her friend, but then begrudged her friend wanting to hang out with her, and then was like, well, I'm gonna go now. After promising her friend she's staying the whole summer, she's like, actually 3 days later I'm gonna go And she goes to break into this summer home to open up the clock where she thinks there's a hidden notebook that will have directions for finding the secretly made second will from Josiah Crowley. However, when she got there, the door was open and the rooms were cleared out, all except one, and she's like, oh no, the place has been burgled, and the old caretaker is nowhere to be seen. And as she's looking around the one room that has stuff in it still, to see if by chance luck the clock is still there, the men come back. Nancy hides in the closet. She has a long drawn out war with her nose where she has to sneeze and manages to suppress it as the men clear out the entire room. Which doesn't really make sense, because who clears out a whole house but doesn't even open the closet to clear that out too? These guys are stripping the home and they don't open the closet to check what's in there. People keep valuables in their closets. So that didn't make sense to me anyways. But it doesn't matter, because as they're leaving the room, as the last guy's leaving the room, Nancy loses the battle with her nose and she sneezes. No, they didn't clear it out. It's full of old furs and things. Nancy's like crammed in there with stuff. Anyway, the robber man opens the door, pulls her out, threatens her, grabs her by the throat, throws her against the wall. It got a lot more violent than I expected a Nancy Drew book to get. And then he's like, you're gonna end up like the old caretaker. And we're like, wait, is he gonna just myrtle her? Like, what's happening here? Instead, he throws her in the closet and locks the door. And he's like, you'll starve to death in there, have fun. And then they leave. So Nancy spends a few hours in there. It's full of dust. It gets really hot. A terrible place to be trapped. She finally manages to start breaking down the door by using the closet bar. And as she's starting to kind of make some progress on that, she hears a voice. And it's the old caretaker, and he lets her out. And we find out it's not that he got killed or tied up or beaten up to get him out of the way. No, the dudes made friends with him, offered him really expensive liquor, got him drunk, and just like left him drunk somewhere. So, the way you get into the story to the point where you start bombing shit. So she's a little frustrated, but she's like, okay, I forget what his name is Jeff. Also, I feel okay. Jeff's dialogue is heavily written in an accent. I want to make that clear. I'm not putting on an accent for fun. Yeah. And I hope it's not, it's anyway. You have me on all 4 screens? All slightly out of sync? I hope you only have the volume on one. You're gonna have crazy nightmares of my face tonight. Okay. Okay. She's got Jeff in her roadster. They're gonna go tell the police. Jeff would be able to identify the men. Nancy is still holding out hope that she can find the clock. She's determined. Hi, Grans. Well, I hope it's not coming across that way, Hades. Yeah, that it's a concern I have. Yeah. But I kind of started reading his dialogue as it's written, and then I was like, should I have toned this down? Or I don't know. Mark and Renee, hello. Aw, hello. How are you doing, Mark? Welcome back. You put book link comments on YouTube to pin. Oh, thank you. Let me pin those now. Thank you, Fidge. It's so dumb that mods can't pin comments on YouTube. Like, YouTube, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, the book is good. Yeah. Yeah. But in hindsight, I was like, should I have? I don't know. But some of the like slang that he uses would sound really weird if I was just saying it in my accent. I don't know. Anyways, let's see what happens. It's Jeff. Poxlia or Poxia. Thank you for the follow. Welcome in. Hello. Chapter 18. Notifying the police. Oh wait, let me... There we go. It was probably fortunate for Nancy Drew that the traffic police were not patrolling the road, for as she opened the throttle wider and wider, her roadster responded with a surge of power that sent the car along at breathtaking speed. Also though, if the traffic police had been patrolling the road, maybe, like, the robbers wouldn't have gotten away. Just thought. Well, this old bus can sure step, observed Jeff. Suppose it turns turtle? Does that mean rolls over? Is that what turns turtle means? Don't worry, Jeff. It won't. I know this roadster. Nancy Drew did know the limit to which she dared go. She guided the car skillfully, and in a short time they were entering the outskirts of Melbourne, the nearest town to the Topham bungalow. Well, better slow down now, miss, Jeff cautioned. The marshal of this town is mighty persnickety about how folks acts. He's run me in more'n once. For speeding? No, just for enjoying myself. Then I suppose you can tell me where the jail is. Indeed I can, miss. I sure can. Fact is, this is my favorite jail. It goes right down Central Avenue to Maple Street and turns to the left, and there you is. The roadster stopped in front of the building with a lurch, and Nancy stepped out briskly, with Jeff following at a more leisurely gait. I must see an officer, Nancy announced as she entered the office. I want to report a robbery. A buzzer rang, and soon a marshal, followed by several men, entered. Nancy quickly told them all she knew about the Topham robbery, and, to corroborate what she had said, she called Jeff for his version. She speaks the truth, testified Jeff, except she don't make it strong enough. First thing, they kidnaps me, so I won't be around to raise no ruckus. Then they gives me a kind of sleeping powder and packs me in a hotel, but I comes to and goes back, and there I find this girl cooped up in a closet just as she told you. And they wrecked Miss Topham's house and stole all the furniture. Thank you for the follow, buttery cow tats. Welcome in. The marshal and his men listened attentively and plied Nancy with questions to clear up certain points. Have you any idea which road they took? The marshal asked her. Yes, sir. I examined the tire tracks where the thieves had backed a truck up to the house and noticed the pattern they made in the turf. When we passed the road crossing a few miles out of town... Oh, sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze there. When we passed the road crossing a few miles out of town, I saw the same tracks just off to the side of the road where they had slipped off in turning their truck northward. Can you lead the way? Yes, I'll do everything in my power to help. The marshal terminated the interview by giving curt orders to his deputies. Get your automobile started, he directed Nancy. We'll follow in the police car. Hurry, Nancy begged as she turned toward the door. "Those men have nearly an hour's start of us now." They gave him expensive booze and sprang for a hotel room, and he says that they gave him a sleeping powder. He didn't call it a roadster. He did not respect the automobile. Hastily, she ran to the street and sprang into the roadster. Starting the motor, she waited impatiently for the marshal and his men to appear. After a seemingly interminable wait, they came out, buckling on holsters. They piled into the police car, which stood at the curbing, and the marshal took the wheel. After several unsuccessful attempts, he started the motor. Jeff Tucker, who had followed the men from the office, would have inflicted his person upon the already overburdened car, but as he attempted to gain the running board, he was forced, gently but firmly, back upon the sidewalk. "Follow me," Nancy cried to the marshal. They just leave. Why isn't Jeff in the roadster with Nancy? Nobody wants him there. Shifting gears, she started off down the road. At the corner, she looked back to see that the police car was following, and caught a glimpse of Jeff Tucker, who stood gazing mournfully after the departing automobiles. At the edge of town, Nancy selected the road which she felt certain the robbers had taken. Her high-powered roadster was built for speed, and several times she was forced to slow down in order that the marshal and his men might keep her in sight. Nancy had gone perhaps 8 or 9 miles, when unexpectedly she came to a fork in the road. Uncertain which branch off to take, she brought the roadster to a halt. The police car pulled up alongside. "What's the matter now?" the marshal called out. "I don't know which way to go." The marshal and his deputies sprang from their automobile and began to examine the tracks in the road. But if a moving van had passed that way, the tire tracks had been obliterated by other vehicles. There was no clue to indicate which route the robbers had selected. Hi, dash cam. That's quite a greeting. What up, goth vampire lady with the mega jawlines? How's it going, Dashcam? It's good to see you again. They must have taken the right-hand fork, the marshal hazarded. Nancy shook her head doubtfully. Doesn't the left-hand road lead to Garwin? The marshal nodded. Then it strikes me the robbers would have taken that road. It seems reasonable that they would head for a large city where they could dispose of the stolen goods. Maybe you're right, the marshal admitted reluctantly. I'll tell you what we'll do, Nancy proposed, as she had an inspiration. You take the right-hand road and I'll head for Garwin. And if you should overtake those rascals, what would you do? The marshal demanded in some amusement. You couldn't expect to stop them single-handed. I wouldn't try. I'd race back and give the alarm. Hurry! Every minute that we delay gives them just that greater advantage. She's just like giving orders to the chief of police here. This girl's confidence is crazy. Without waiting until the marshal had returned to his automobile, Nancy drew back to her car and headed down the left-hand road. The highway was smooth, and as there was a clear stretch ahead, she drove rapidly. She realized that already the robbers had a big start, and that if once they reached Garwin, she could not hope to overtake them. I'm sure I'm on the right trail, she told herself. That other road doesn't lead anywhere in particular. After she had traveled several miles, Nancy became less confident. Although she had passed a number of side roads, she had kept to the main highway, and she realized that it would have been easy for the moving van to elude pursuit by taking any one of the branches. Still, the robbers can't know they are being followed, she reasoned. It's likely they'll be off their guard. 15 minutes passed, and Nancy began to fear that, after all, she had selected the wrong road at the fork. Presently, as she noticed a man with a team of horses approaching, she determined to question him. Oh shit, I told you guys there were no horses in this book. I was wrong. Okay, let's all pray for the horses. She's gonna run one of the roadster is gonna make dog food of that horse. They'll probably be fine. Yeah, probably, yeah. Okay. Have you seen a large moving van on this road? She called out as she stopped the roadster along the wagon. Well, a truck passed by me about 20 minutes ago, the farmer told her. A big road hog tried to push me into a ditch. Highly elated at the information, Nancy thanked the farmer and drove on. Nancy, you're not supposed to smile when someone tells you they were almost driven into a ditch. That's antisocial of you. At the rate I'm going, I should overtake the robbers in a few minutes, she thought. Oh, if only I could get my hands on the Crowley clock before the police confiscate the stolen goods. 10 minutes passed, and then another 10. As Nancy gazed anxiously down the road, she could see no sign of the moving van. Damon, that was earlier today. Yeah, on Tuesdays, I do an afternoon co-working stream, and then I go offline for a couple hours, and then I come back for my normal content. But it's good to see you again. Alright. I've missed them somewhere, she decided in disappointment. There's nothing to do but go back. My normal content. Nancy Drew recalled the fact that she had passed a roadhouse less than a mile back, and it occurred to her that possibly the robbers had stopped there. I'll go back there and make an inquiry. Wait, that was too British. I'll go back there and make an inquiry, she thought. I haven't gone by a single crossroad since I talked with that farmer, so if the robbers didn't stop at the roadhouse, I can't imagine what has become of them. If they were on this road, I am certain I would have passed by them this time. Or I would have passed them by this time. Dusk was approaching, and Nancy Drew knew that if she were ever to find the robbers, it must be within the next hour. Skillfully, she turned the roadster around in the road. A few minutes of fast driving brought her within sight of the roadhouse. The place was of disreputable appearance, and Nancy suspected that it might be a bad resort to visit. It stood back from the road a short distance and was half hidden by tall trees. The building was large and rambling, but rather old and sadly in need of paint. A sign on the gate read, "The Black Horse." Beyond the inn, Nancy caught a glimpse of a garage and a large stable. Buddha, either stop sleeping on your phone or hello Buddha's cat, potentially. I like how autocorrect tried to make some sense of that gibberish and put in the words ripple effects amongst a bunch of just... Also, I like hug tinty. Underestimated the number of car chases in a Nancy... Yeah. The more they mention horses, the less fun I think they're gonna be. Yeah. Hey, Rob. Hug Tinty. Okay. She did not enter the private driveway which led to the inn, but stopped her car at the side of the road. Before starting to walk toward the roadhouse, she hesitated. I don't like to go in there, but there's no other way, she decided. She walked briskly up the path, glancing about in all directions for a sign of a moving van. That's very close, Banana. Thank you for that gift sub to Hugo Tintin. Thank you. The door of the garage was closed, as was the door of the barn, and the thought occurred to her that perhaps the robbers had parked their van inside one of the buildings. As she drew near the inn, Nancy approached cautiously. Good. Thank you for the gifts up to Nancy Drew. Thank you. Nancy fails yet another saving throw to resist snooping. She's a snoopy girl. Nancy approached cautiously. As she stepped upon the veranda, coarse laughter reached her ears. She tiptoed to a window and peered inside. What she saw caused her to start with surprise. In a dingy, dimly lighted room, 3 men were seated about a table, obviously engaged in a drinking orgy. They were the 3 men who had robbed the Topham bungalow. End of chapter. Dang. They're having an orgy. Oh, Sean, thank you for the 300 biddies. I mean, this really calls into question what exactly they did in that fancy hotel room with Jeff. Alright. That looks even crazier. Oh god, I didn't even think about how it looked on vertical. When are we reading Goblin Market again? Didn't we just read it, like, within the last 6 months when we did, like, the best of? Okay. Chapter 19. A risky undertaking. I must notify the marshal at once, Nancy Drew told herself as she recognized the 3 robbers. Turning away from the window, she crept noiselessly from the porch, and as soon as she was a safe distance from the inn, broke into a run. As she stepped into her roadster, a sudden thought occurred to her. Nancy wants to snoop. Nancy, is that the best option right now? Is that the wisest decision? Can she resist? No, honestly, all jokes aside, the word orgy did not used to mean specifically to do with sex. It was more to do with just an overabundance. So drink. I mean, classical orgies like Roman orgies would have had a lot of food as well. It's just like consumption, sensual in terms of like taste and fine fabrics and fine wine and like, and then of course you got all these people getting drunk and like sex would happen. So it became associated with sex, but it originally didn't have to include sex. Yes. Okay. A sudden thought occurred to her. Those robbers must have parked their van in the garage back at the inn. Oh, if only I could get my hands on the clock before I notify the police. Once the marshal takes charge of the stolen goods, I'll have no opportunity. Motivated by the impulse, Nancy drove on down the road a short distance and, rounding a bend, came up on another side road which led into the woods directly behind the inn. Stopping the roadster where it would be hidden by the trees, she got out and hurried through the timber. Before leaving the car, she had secured her flashlight, for it already was growing dark. Cautiously, she approached the inn from the rear. Reaching the garage, she found the doors closed, but investigation disclosed that they had not been locked. She rolled a nat 20 there. She opened one of the doors and looked inside. There was no sign of a truck, only a battered old Ford car. They must have parked the van in the barn, she decided. As she opened the stable door, it squeaked in an alarming fashion. Anxiously, she glanced toward the inn, but so far as she could tell, her actions were unobserved. There was no one in sight. Flinging the door wide, the girl peered hopefully into the dark interior. A low cry escaped from her lips. Hi, Lima Crazy, hello, and Crispy, hello. There, in front of her, stood the moving van. Oh, what a piece of luck, she exclaimed as she viewed the truck which the robbers had left in the barn. Now, if I can only find the clock. With a last cautious glance in the direction of the roadhouse, she hastily closed the barn door, lest it swing in the wind and attract attention. With the door shut, the interior of the barn was dark. As Nancy switched on her automobile flashlight and played it over the moving van, she was disappointed to note that it was a covered one. The rear doors were closed. Nevertheless, although she could not see inside, she was certain the truck, I think that's supposed to say truck. She was certain the truck contained the goods stolen only a few hours before from the Topham bungalow. Oh yeah, Dashcam, the lore goes deep. The lore does go deep. Oh dear. Okay, though. We don't have to, like, tell all my worst stories at one time. Okay. Securing a firm grip on the door handle, she gave it a quick turn. To her surprise, the door did not open. With an exclamation of disappointment, Nancy turned her flashlight on it, and for the first time, noticed the keyhole. The robbers had locked the van. Oh dear, now what shall I do? She questioned frantically. I'll never be able to break the lock. Desperately, she glanced about. She dared not remain many minutes in the barn, lest the robbers return and find her there. Yet she could not admit defeat. Perhaps the keys were left in the ignition switch, she thought, hopefully. She really needs to learn to pick locks. Agreed. She rushed to the front of the van and clambered into the driver's seat. An examination of the dashboard did not reveal the keys hanging from the ignition switch. I mean, no shit, Nancy. Why would they leave? Like, come on, girl. Unholy Gent, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. The robbers must have taken the keys with them, she told herself. Nancy was discouraged. As she was on the point of admitting defeat, when a thought came to her. Among her acquaintances, there were a number of persons who, upon occasion, hid their automobile keys under the front seat. It was barely possible that the robbers had done likewise. Nancy hastily pulled up the leather seat and looked underneath. A ray of her flashlight illuminated a small object in one corner. Eagerly, she snatched it up and saw that it was a keyring. Oh, luck was with me once, she murmured as she ran back to the rear of the van. After trying several of the keys, she at last found one which would fit the lock. Turning it, she jerked open the door. As she flashed her light about inside the truck, she saw that she had made no mistake. The van contained the stolen goods, and it was loaded nearly to the top. What shall I do if the clock is on the bottom? Nancy groaned as another problem occurred to her. I'll never find it. Dexterously, she swung herself up on the load. She flashed the light about on chairs, tables, rugs, and boxes. There was no sign of the Crowley clock. Then the beam rested for a moment upon an object in a far corner, and with a low cry of delight, Nancy saw that her search had been rewarded. Protected by a blanket, an old-fashioned mantel clock rested on top of a center table in the very front of the van. She scrambled laboriously over odd pieces of furniture as she tried to reach the clock. Her dress caught on something sharp and tore, but Nancy did not heed it. She snatched at the blanket and swept the clock toward her. One glance at the timepiece assured her that it fit the description Abigail Rowan had given her. It had a square face, and the top was ornamented with a crescent. Nancy was almost certain that it was the Crowley clock. But as she stood staring at it, her keen ears detected the sound of voices outside the barn. The robbers were coming back. "Oh, I'm lost," flashed through her mind. Clutching the blanket and the clock tightly in her arms, Nancy Drew partly crawled and partly fell over objects as she struggled to get out of the truck before it was too late. She was afraid to think what would happen to her if the robbers discovered her in the van. Reaching the door, she leapt lightly to the floor. She could now hear heavy footsteps coming closer and closer. Nancy slammed the truck door shut and searched wildly for the keys. "Oh, what did I do with them?" she thought frantically. She saw that they had fallen from the door to the floor and snatched them up. Hurriedly inserting the right key in the lock, she secured the doors. Okay, Nancy, don't put the keys back, though. Keep the keys, and then the robbers won't be able to drive away. Keep the keys. Get back to your car when you can. Get the police there. They're gonna find the scrap of her skirt. Yes. Your girlfriend is as real as my hair color. Dash cam. Is that a cell phone? The deed was not accomplished a minute too soon. As Nancy wheeled about, she distinctively heard the murmur of angry voices outside. The robbers were quarreling among themselves, and already someone was working at the fastening on the barn door. Escape was cut off. Nancy felt that she was cornered. It's because you are cornered, Nancy. That's why you feel that way. Oh, what shall I do? She thought in despair. End of chapter. Yeah, she finally has some flaws. Her desire to go after the thing that she's like really single-minded about drives her to make not always the smartest decision. She does, yeah, no self-preservation. She could have driven off in the van, although then she would have had to leave her roadster behind, and I don't know if she's willing to do that. All right. Chapter 20. What Nancy Found. Oh, you discovered the great cosmic pickle. Grands. All right. While Nancy Drew hesitated, uncertain which way to turn, her mind worked more clearly than ever before. She realized instantly that she could not hope to run to the front of the car and place the keys under the seat where she had found them. Why would you want to? Instead of attempting the impossible, she flung them upon the floor. Put them in your pocket. Okay. Then glancing frantically about for a hiding place, she saw an empty manger. Running to it, she scrambled inside and dropped the blanket over her head, just as one of the barn doors swung open. 3 men came in, closing the door after them, and, as Nancy had suspected, they were the robbers. Well, evidently they had been drinking, for they were quarreling among themselves after over the division of spoils. Well, shut up, the leader growled. Get in and let's be getting out of here before we have the cops down on our heads. Nancy heard him rummaging under the seat of the car. Say, what'd you do with them keys? He demanded harshly of one of his men. What do you suppose? Came the unpleasant response. I put 'em under the seat. And come and find them. Don't be all day about it either. All right. Get out of the way. Give me a chance. As the second robber went to the truck and began a careful search for the keys, Nancy Drew crouched fearfully in her hiding place. I don't see what could have happened to them keys, the robber complained after an unsuccessful search. I put 'em right under the seat. Say, if you've lost them. The leader did not finish the threat, for at that moment the third robber stooped over and picked up something at his feet. Here they are on the floor. You must have put them in your pocket and dropped them out. I didn't, the other retorted. I never had them keys in my pocket. The robbers were in a quarrelsome mood and would have engaged in a battle then and there had not the leader interrupted. Say, cut out the comedy. We ain't got no time for a fight unless we want to land behind the bars. And if we do, it'll be your fault. You left that girl to starve. Shut up, the leader snarled. He rattled the rear door of the van and found it locked. There's no harm done this time. No one has meddled with the truck. Now, get in before I give you a swift kick. After a few more angry words, the 3 robbers climbed into the front seat and started the engine. Due to their inebriated condition, they had overlooked the barn doors, and before the van could be backed from the building, it was necessary for one of the men to get out and fasten them back. In relief, Nancy watched the men go. The moment they were a safe distance from the barn, she scrambled out of the manger. She paused long enough to make certain that the van had taken the road to Garwin. Then, clutching the precious clock in her arms, she turned and ran. Hey, Nancy, you know you're also a thief in this situation? Like, you know you've also burgled something? I don't really know what she's planning to do with the clock, but... Stealing from thieves is okay. As proof, yeah, I found it and I stole this thing. Why did you, no, she should not tell the cops that she had dallied around and, crawled around in there. It's, not stealing at all. Alright. As Nancy darted into the woods, she cast an anxious glance over her shoulder, but to her intense relief, she saw that she was not being followed. There was no one to be seen in the vicinity of the roadhouse, and the big moving van was proceeding slowly on its way toward Garwin, the occupants oblivious that their whereabouts had been discovered. Hi, Shaggy. Thank you for the follow. Well, she's pretty epic, so thank you. I had a narrow escape that time, Nancy told herself as she ran. I hate to think of my fate if I'd been discovered. She chuckled softly at her own bravado and clutched the mantel clock more tightly in her arms. Oh well, it was worth the risk I took. It was dark in the woods, and Nancy could see only a few feet ahead of her. To her chagrin, she discovered that she had left her automobile flashlight somewhere in the barn, probably in the manger. There was no time to go back after it. Confident that her sense of direction was good, she plunged through the bushes toward the place where she had parked her roadster. I'm sure the clock is the right one, she thought. Now, if it only contains Josiah Crowley's notebook. In the timber there was insufficient light for her to examine the clock, but from the hasty glance she had given it in the barn, she was almost certain it was the timepiece Abigail Rowan had described to her. If the old woman's story was correct, she would find Josiah Crowley's notebook inside. Reaching the roadster and finding it exactly as she had left it, the girl sprang inside. I'll go for the police as fast as I can and send them after the robbers, she decided. The Tophams don't deserve any consideration, but I couldn't be mean enough to sit quietly by and let them lose their household goods. Then, as she was about to start the motor, her glance fell upon the Crowley clock. What was that? Oh, it's a siren. Can you guys hear that? Yeah, guinea pigs are not too weird. Although they are technically classified as exotic pets. Which is really funny to me. I mean, they're Peruvian. Yeah. The coppers are onto us. Alright. Then, as she was about to start the motor, her glance fell upon the Crowley clock which she had placed on the seat beside her. Oh, she was fairly overcome with curiosity to learn what it would reveal. As she hesitated, she found it impossible to resist the temptation of investigating it immediately, even at the cost of a few minutes' delay. This is her flaw. Impulsively, she opened the glass door and ran her hand around the walls. There was nothing inside. Gone? Nancy groaned. Could it be that the Tophams had discovered the notebook, only to destroy it? Nancy discarded the thought as quickly as it came to mind, for she recalled the conversation she had overheard between Ada and Isabel. No, they were as ignorant as herself concerning the location of the will. It was more likely that Abigail Rowan had been confused in her story. After all, she had not declared that the notebook would be found inside the clock. Nancy had made the deduction herself. I was almost certain I'd find the notebook, she murmured in disappointment. Oh, it must be here somewhere. Turning the clock upside down, she gave it a hard shake. Something rattled. Hopefully, she repeated the action. Unquestionably, there was something bulky inside. Oh, it must be the notebook, Nancy thought in excitement. Unless I'm wrong, it's behind the face. How can I get it off? Girl, she's sitting in the dark, okay? In the dark, in her car. There's no street lights. There's no lighting in her car. She left her flashlight in the barn. Like, she's prying apart this heirloom clock. Just wait till you get home, you know? After a vain attempt to remove the heavy cardboard face with her fingers, she lifted the automobile seat and found a small tool with which she could pry. It then required but an instant to remove the two hands of the clock and jerk off the face. I don't love that wording, but okay. Okay. As the cardboard fell to the floor, Nancy peered hopefully inside. Stop it. And gave a low cry of delight. Eureka! Stop it, you guys. It's all good. It's fine. There, at one side of the clock, attached to a hook in the top, dangled a tiny blue notebook. End of chapter. Oh dear. All right. Obviously we need to see what happens next. Obviously. We just like books here. That's all. Oh, Artax. Like a little blue uvula. I don't like that at all. Especially after jerking off the face. Okay. Chapter 21. Capturing the robbers. Eagerly, Nancy Drew tore the little notebook from the hook. The light was dim, but by holding the book directly under the dashlight, she could make out the words on the cover. The property of Josiah Crowley. Okay, she's got a tiny light. She's got a tiny light. I was wrong. She's got a tiny light. I found it at last, she cried. Quickly turning the first few pages, she saw that they were yellowed with age. The writing was fine and cramped, and the ink had faded. These pages were crowded with business notations, but in the poor light it was next to impossible to make out the words. Nancy was excited, for she was positive that the notebook would disclose what Josiah Crowley had done with his will. Yet she realized that she could not hope to read through the book without a considerable loss of precious time. If she were to report the whereabouts of the robbers to the police, she must not delay another instant. I'll read the notebook later, she decided. Hurriedly replacing it on the hook inside the clock. Girl, no! Put it in your pocket. What if someone sees the clock and takes it away from you? Take the notebook. This girl is making some dumb decisions. Okay. Hey, Johnny. She should have taken the clock and the truck keys, which would have delayed the robbers. They would have drunkenly started beating each other up, like, you lost the keys, you lost the keys. She should have gone right back to her car, hidden the clock, like, in her boot, the car boot, the trunk, and then driven for the police immediately. Yeah, or put it in the glove compartment. Yeah. Like, it's the secret of the old clock, Faolkor. You can't just put a secret clock notebook in your pocket. Well, you know what, Keaturn? I hadn't thought about it from that point of view. That's, yeah, that's some logic you're speaking. There's a clock in my boot. Oh, sorry. In the roadster, not the car. I'm so sorry. Oh my god. I'm not sure if Nancy will forgive me. Okay. The secret of the old clock notebook in her pocket. Alright. Hurriedly replacing it on the hook inside the clock, she tacked on the face again. Then, dropping the timepiece on the seat beside her, she covered it with a blanket. Cram. Thank you for the follow. Welcome. Starting the engine, she skillfully backed the roadster and headed for the main road. Reaching the highway, she cast an anxious glance in the direction the robbers had taken. There was no sign of a light on the road. The moving van had disappeared. I must travel some now, Nancy told herself grimly. These robbers have at least 10 minutes start, and I may have trouble finding the marshal and his deputies. Bending low over the steering wheel, she deliberately stepped hard on the accelerator. The roadster leapt forward, as though it, too, comprehended the need for haste. If those men reach Garwin before the marshal overtakes them, there won't be one chance in 100 of capturing them, Nancy thought. It was foolish of me to take time to look at the clock. Yes, it was, Nancy. Shaky Rogers. What? Thank you for gifting a sub to Loki. Aw, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Presently reaching the fork in the road, she selected the right-hand turn, and with undiminished speed, rushed on. She had gone several miles beyond the fork, when far ahead, she caught sight of an automobile headlight. Nancy promptly reduced the speed of the car. The marshal and his deputies may have given up the search and are coming back, she reasoned. I must be careful not to pass them. As the automobile approached, Nancy slowed her roadster practically to a standstill. Then, as she recognized the police car, she brought her own automobile to a halt. As the marshal and his deputies flashed by, she cried out for them to stop. There was a loud screeching of brakes as the police car came to an abrupt halt. Springing from the roadster, Nancy ran forward. Quick, she called to the marshal. The robbers have taken the road to Garwin. If you hurry, you can overtake them. Go on and I'll follow. Did they need her help anymore? Like, she's a 16-year-old girl. Like, why have they not told her to go home? And they, as the grown men that are police officers, will take care of the robbers. Like, I'm confused why they're still allowing her to be involved in, like, a car chase with robbers. The roadster has achieved sentience. Yep. I actually have no idea what you were trying to say there, Dashcam. I believe you that you had a autocorrect incident, but were you trying to say jerk-offs? Like jerking off the clock face? Hi, Pirates. Okay. Without waiting for more, the marshal and his deputies drove off at top speed. The automobile rounded a bend and was lost to view. For an instant, Nancy Drew stood looking after it, then springing into her roadster, she too was off. Following close behind the police car, the girls sped down the road in pursuit of the robbers. The two automobiles passed the roadhouse beyond the fork and raced toward Garwin. We should have overtaken the robbers by this time, Nancy told herself anxiously. After a number of miles had been traversed and still there was no sign of a moving van. They can't have gone very far. 10 minutes passed. Then, unexpectedly, she caught a glimpse of a red taillight on the road far ahead. Oh, it must be the van, Nancy thought. The light doesn't appear to be moving fast enough for an automobile. So does the word automobile only apply to cars, not like vans or trucks? Johnny, thank you for the 10 stream streak. Heck yeah. How are you doing, Johnny? And hi, Luna. Hello. Yeah, and not for a roadster. It should apply to any engine motive vehicle that is land-based. That's what I thought, but, okay. Evidently, the marshal and his deputies were of the same opinion, for at that moment the police car slowed down. "Don't fire unless it's necessary," the marshal ordered his men. "But if they resist, pepper them." Cautiously, the police car approached. As the headlight played upon the rear of the van, Nancy saw the license plate clearly and recognized the numbers. Then, as the van pulled over to the side of the road, the police car drove alongside. "Halt!" came the order. The van did not stop. Instead, it put on additional speed and crowded the police car toward the ditch. Oh, Nancy's heart was in her mouth as she watched, for it seemed certain that the marshal and his deputies were doomed. At the very edge of the road, the police car, by a sudden spurt of speed, forged ahead and averted disaster. "Halt!" rang out the warning cry a second time. "Halt or we'll fire!" There was a sharp crack of a revolver as the robbers fired the first shot. Again, why is Nancy allowed to be a part of this armed car chase? Like, she could get shot and killed, and she's just like a 16-year-old girl civilian. Like, this is crazy. The marshal and his deputies answered with a quick volley. One of the shots found its mark, the front tire. The van swerved in the road, and as the two side wheels went off into a steep ditch, toppled over. In an instant, the marshal and his men were out of the police car and had covered the three robbers. So easily had the van tipped on its side that the men were not injured, but the unexpected jar had thrown them off their guard. "Take their guns," the marshal ordered. A deputy relieved the three men of their revolvers and searched their pockets for other dangerous weapons. Another deputy handcuffed them. By this time, Nancy, who had stopped her roadster at the side of the road, reached the scene. As she came running up, the marshal turned to her. "Can you identify these men?" As a light was flashed upon each of the robbers in turn, Nancy nodded. "There is the man who locked me up and left me to starve," she declared, pointing to the leader of the robber band. "And the stolen goods are in the van." "Well, they'll get 10 or 20 years for this," the marshal promised. "We'll hold them on several charges. You're willing to testify against them, I suppose?" "Yes, if it's necessary," Nancy promised reluctantly. "But I don't live in this county, and I'm anxious to get home right away. It seems to me you have enough evidence to convict them." "Well, if you don't want to, I guess there's no need for you to go back with us," the marshal admitted. "I'll take your address, and if your testimony should be required later, I'll get in touch with you." As Nancy told the marshal her name and address, he glanced at her with new interest. "So, you're the daughter of Carson Drew. I see you're following in his footsteps. Starting in young, aren't you?" Nancy laughed. "It was only an accident that took me to the Topham bungalow at the critical moment," she protested modestly. "I don't deserve any credit for the roundup." "Well, not many girls would have used their brains the way you did," the marshal observed. "Unless I'm mistaken, these robbers are old hands at the game. They've been plying their trade around Moon Lake for a number of seasons. The residents will be mighty grateful for what you've done. And that Mrs. Topham you spoke of, she ought to give you a liberal reward for saving her household goods." Nancy shook her head. "I don't want a reward." "Well, just the same you've earned one," the marshal insisted. "If you're shy about blowing your own horn, I'll take it up with this Mrs. Topham myself." "Oh, you don't know her as well as I do," Nancy remarked. She'll not offer a reward, and even if she did, I wouldn't accept it. In fact, I must ask you not to mention my name to her at all. You don't want any credit for capturing the robbers? The marshal gasped in astonishment. No, I would prefer that my name not be mentioned in connection with the affair. I have a particular reason for making the request. Girl, that's so suspicious. Like, I get why you're asking that, but there are things to say that sound less sussy. Just be like, oh, she hates me, like, I just don't want, like, instead of being like, I've got a particular reason. Like, if I were, I'd be like, what is it? What is it? Why were you there? The vibes are good here. Oh, thank you, Dashcam. Well, you're a queer one, the marshal remarked. You're the first person I ever saw who didn't want to take all the glory that was coming to him. You'll not mention my name? No, I'll keep it, Mom, the marshal promised. And if you're anxious not to figure in the case, well, I guess we can get along without your testimony. He turned toward the moving van. I'll just have a look inside and see if everything is here. Taking the keys, which one of the deputies had turned over to him, the marshal unlocked the rear doors of the van and carelessly glanced inside. It's all here, he announced. Nancy smiled and thought of the clock, which at the moment was hidden under a blanket in her roadster, less than a dozen yards away. Let's be getting away from here, the marshal directed briskly. He singled out one of the deputies. You stay here and guard the stolen goods until we can send another truck after it. I'll see to it that these robbers land behind bars, and then I'll come back. Just a minute, Nancy interposed as the marshal was about to escort the three robbers to the police car. I want to ask a few questions. She turned to the leader of the robbers. It was you who stole the keys from Jeff Tucker after getting him drunk, wasn't it? What if I did? The robber growled. I wish I'd finished him. Unceremoniously, the three prisoners were crowded into the police car. One of the deputies took the steering wheel, and another stood on the running board, covering the robbers with his revolver. There was no room left for the marshal. Are you going back through town? He asked Nancy. Yes. It's right on my way to River Heights, she responded, without a thought as to the purpose of the question. Then, if you don't mind, I'll ride back with you. There isn't room in the police car. Oh shit, girl, this is why I said put the damn notebook somewhere else. What are Miranda rights? I feel like I've heard that before, but that's an American thing, right? Is that your whole, like, you are allowed to be silent thing? Yeah, okay. The right to remain silent? Okay. Why, of course, Nancy stammered. At once, she thought of the clock which she had left on the seat of the roadster. What if the marshal should discover it? Even as the thought came to her, the marshal started toward the roadster. I mean, girl, you left it on the seat. This is why I was saying, like, put it in the trunk, or, like, put it on the floor behind this. Like, this girl is smart in some ways, but, like, straight dumb in others. Why didn't you get the van? Which the marshal? They're leaving the van where it is, and they're getting another truck to come out. And then the other deputy because the police were all in one car, and one of the deputies is just waiting on the road with the truck full of stolen goods for someone else to arrive and help with that. The other deputy is driving the police car with the handcuffed robbers in it. I don't understand. Like, I get that there's 3 men, but, like, wouldn't they all be in the back seat? Like, why is there not room for him? I don't know. Hey, Shuja. We are reading The Secret of the Old Clock. I would not say I'm famous on Twitch, Dashcam. I would not say that. I do all right. It's, you know, my main job. And I've been doing it for a few years, so I feel good about it. But I would not say. Yeah. Aw, banana. I don't. But yeah, I do average pretty low viewership on YouTube because. Well, I was gonna say because I only started a few months ago, but maybe that'll. I don't know if it'll ever pick up on YouTube, but at least it'll create an archive. On Twitch, I've got 125? 125? Yeah, they're all here for the guinea pigs. You have to massage the YouTube algorithm. Yeah, I'm sure there's something I could do differently just to get, like, a little bit more push. But, I don't really know. I don't really know how. I don't know. Carolyn Keene was Mildred Benson and her editor for these first few books. Mildred Benson. Nancy Drew would kick Dorothy's ass. Oh, you know that Dorothy would be a little bitch fighter. She would scratch and spit. Yeah, just gently fondle the algorithm. Alright. We need to read the next chapter because, like, the police chief is, like, heading for the car. It's an AI, so it looks for patterns. Just titling your stream something that's a variation of a popular title can do wonders. So my titles of, like, live reading and the title is not doing me any favors. The book is nearly over. This is chapter 22, and there are 25 chapters. Ooh, okay. Should we finish it tonight, or should we call it soon? I feel like we need to read this next one because it's like, yeah. Aw, Tyra, thank you. You won't believe what Nancy did next. Wait, so more like my Twitch title, which is, "Where's the clock, Nancy?" So I should do more of that on YouTube. Wait, I don't know if you guys are joking or not. You won't believe what this girl did next. Intense car chase. Chapter 22. What the Notebook Revealed. Just a minute, Nancy Drew stammered as she darted toward the roadster, blocking the marshal's path. There's a package in the seat. I'll put it in the back. Hastily, she picked up the clock, which was covered in a blanket. Oh, never mind that, the marshal interposed. I can hold it. Oh, it's no trouble to put it in the catch-all in the back, Nancy assured him. Then it will be out of your way. Before the man could offer to do it for her, she had carried the clock to the rear of the car. Lifting the cover, she placed it on the floor. During the ride back to town, Nancy Drew was anything but easy in her mind, but she gave no indication that she was nervous. It was not until she had said goodbye to the marshal at the jail that she felt entirely safe. That was a narrow escape, she laughed as she drove away. It might not have gone so well with me if the marshal had discovered stolen goods in my car. But it certainly wouldn't have been easy to explain how I came by that clock. Aw, Jagged, thank you for the 40-stream streak. Nancy Drew jerks off a clock. Although it was late, Nancy was determined to return to River Heights that night. She was anxious to examine the notebook and learn whether or not it would disclose the hiding place of Josiah Crowley's second will. I'm so eager to get home and have a chance to dig into the notebook, she thought as she drove along the road. I went through a lot to get it, and I'll be disappointed if it doesn't contain good news. It will mean so much to the Horner girls and poor old Abigail if the will is found. It was nearly 10 o'clock that night when Nancy, tired and worn from the long automobile ride, reached her home in River Heights. As she drove into the double garage, she noticed that her father's car was gone. A glance at the house disclosed that the windows were dark. I wonder where Father can be, she questioned herself. I wanted to tell him about my discovery right away. She removed the Crowley clock from the back of the roadster and paused an instant to gloat over it. She was well satisfied with the result of her detective work. Locking the garage door, she went inside and switched on the electric light. The house seemed deserted, for Hannah, the maid, had already retired. Father's probably working late at the office, Nancy decided. Oh well, I may as well stay up, and while I'm waiting, I'll have a look at the notebook. During the long ride from Moon Lake, she had been impatient for an opportunity to examine the Crowley notebook, and now she lost no time in finding a screwdriver. She took off the face of the clock and from the hook removed the notebook. Now, to find what became of the will, she declared as she curled up in a comfortable chair near a reading lamp. Oh, I hope everything turns out right for Allie and Grace and for Abigail Rowan. Carefully, Nancy thumbed over the pages, for they were yellowed with age, and she was afraid they might tear. Evidently, Josiah Crowley had used the same notebook for many years. Page after page the girl read, perusing inconsequential memoranda and numerous notations of property owned by Josiah Crowley, as well as various business transactions made by him. Nancy was surprised at the list of stocks, bonds, and notes which apparently belonged to the estate. The amount reached well over $300,000. All right, dudes, how much is that in today's money? I still feel like something might come of her torn dress. I don't know. Hi, Pratik. Yes, ASMR audiobook. That's basically it. Yeah. 8 gazillion. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Somewhere between 5.8 million to 6.4 million in 2026. Right. Okay, so several $1,000,000. Yeah, 300,000 in 1930. All right. I had no idea Josiah Crowley had that much money, she murmured. After a time, she grew impatient of the seemingly endless list and, skipping many pages, turned ahead. Suddenly, the phrase, "my will," caught and held her attention. Eagerly, Nancy pounced upon it and began to read. I found it at last, she told herself in excitement. The notation was brief and written in Josiah Crowley's cramped hand. To whom it may concern, my last will and testament will be found in the safety deposit box number 148, in the Masonville National Bank. The box is under the name of Josiah Harkston. The date of this entry was recent, and the ink had not faded, as in the earlier entries in the notebook. Then there was another will, Nancy exclaimed aloud. Oh, I'm sure it must be in favor of the Horner girls, too. She hurriedly read on, but although she carefully examined every page in the book, there was no other mention of the will. No wonder the will never came to light, Nancy mused. Who would ever have thought of looking for it in a safety deposit box under the name of Josiah Harkston? In his zest for safety, Josiah Crowley nearly defeated his own purpose. Her thoughts were interrupted as she heard an automobile turning in at the drive. Rushing to the window, Nancy saw her father drive into the garage. As he opened the front door, she ran to meet him. Why, hello, Nancy, he greeted her in surprise. If I'd known you were here, I'd have come home sooner. I was doing some special work on a case. Back from Moon Lake early, aren't you? Yes, Nancy admitted, trying to hide her excitement, but for a good reason. Before her father could remove his hat, she plunged into the story of her adventures and ended by showing him the notebook, which she had found inside the mantel clock. When she finished, Carson Drew looked at her with mingled pride and amusement. Yeah, that's the proper reaction to hearing that your teenage daughter has been in a high-speed, armed robbery car chase. You're a regular detective, Nancy. You're making fun of me. Carson Drew's face sobered. No, I'm proud of what you've done, Nancy. I couldn't have done better myself. Perhaps not so well. You took a real risk when you encountered those robbers. But so long as you're back home safe and sound, it doesn't matter. The Tophams aren't going to thank me when they find out what I've done. Hardly. They may accuse you of stealing their clock, although so long as their house was open when you entered, they can't claim that you broke in. However, if we can manage to keep the knowledge from them, it will be just as well that they don't learn the details of how the will was found. Carson Drew picked up the notebook and glanced through it with interest. A fortune will make a nice nest egg for someone, he commented, as he looked over the lists of stocks and bonds owned by Crowley. These securities are of the best, too. All gilt edge. I hope the Tophams will be cut off without a cent, Nancy declared. Damn, girl. Well, it's likely they will be. But of course, you never can be certain until the will is read. Unless I'm mistaken, your discovery will strike the Tophams at an especially awkward time. What do you mean? Well, there's a rumor going the rounds to the effect that Richard Topham has been losing heavily in the stock market this last month. He's been getting credit at a number of the banks on the strength of the inheritance, and I suspect he is depending on Crowley's money to pull him through a tight place. Well, at least he's made every effort to speed up the settlement of the estate. It would serve the Tophams right if they lose everything, Nancy said, decisively. They never had a particle of charity for anyone. They would let their relatives starve before they would help them. Carson Drew glanced again at the notebook in his hand. Now that you've found this, the thing to do is locate the will at once, before Richard Topham gets wind of what is up, he advised. We want to administer the coup de grace before the Tophams have a chance to get the fortune into their hands. Once the estate is settled, it will not be easy to wrest it away from them. I'd like to turn the matter over to you, Nancy responded promptly. I'm not familiar with legal procedure, and you know exactly what should be done. I'll be glad to help you if I can, Nancy. The first thing, of course, is to get our hands on the will. Well, that should be easy. We can drive over to the Masonville National Bank the first thing in the morning. Yes, but we haven't authority to open the safety deposit box. It may be necessary to get a court order, Carson Drew reminded his daughter. That's true. I hadn't thought of that. But you can manage it, can't you? Carson Drew chuckled. Well, I know the judge. Yes, I think I can arrange it all right. I'll tell him I'm acting as counsel for the Horner girls. Well, I really am, because I promised I'd help them if I could. Oh, I hope everything is going to turn out just as I hoped, Nancy cried enthusiastically. The deserving relatives will get the money, and the Tophams will be left out in the cold. Abigail Rowan will be able to have the medical attention she needs, and Allie and Grace will be fixed for life. Don't build your hopes too high, Carson Drew advised her wisely. There may be a slip, you know. We may fail to find the will in the deposit box, and of course there's a chance that Josiah Crowley didn't dispose of the fortune, as it was expected that he would. If I were you, I wouldn't say anything to the Horner girls until we're certain. I won't, Nancy promised as she turned toward the stairs. But I can't help hoping. I'm going to bed now and get a good night's rest. Then tomorrow we'll start off on the big adventure. Oh, I can scarcely wait to find out what the will contains. Halfway up the stairs, she hesitated, and then returned to the living room and picked up the notebook which rested on the table. After all I've gone through to get my hands on this, I'm not going to take any chances, she laughed. Tonight I'm going to sleep with it under my pillow. End of chapter. Okay, but he told Abigail, the old lady, about the notebook and the clock, so surely there's like instructions at the bank that like an Abigail Rowan could access it, right? Like he'd have to be really stupid to make it that like no one could access the will. Surely it would be the person he told about it, right? Abigail's the only person he told about it. Just get Abigail to go with you to the bank. Yeah, he's very proud of her for like being kind of a criminal. Okay, there are 3 chapters left, and I think we should leave them until Thursday. Yeah, she needs to go back and check on Abigail too. It's been like, has it been a week? It's been at least several days since she last checked on Abigail, and the last time she checked on her, she was like dying on the couch and like couldn't walk on her own. And then she's just like, here's some groceries. Like, she needs to be checked in on again. Okay. This was awesome. That means that we will be finishing this book on Thursday. And then on Friday, we're doing a bonus stream. We're going to do a Folklore Friday. And then on Sunday, I guess we could start a new book on Sunday, but I will be streaming from my laptop from a different location. So I haven't decided if I want to start a new book, or we might just do like short stories or like just ASMR. But yeah. Your voice makes me sleepy. Wonderful, Pratik. That is part of the purpose. Part of the purpose. Trying to make people cozy, and honestly, I'm equally happy if people are like riveted to the story, or if they're falling asleep and using this as cozy background noise. Both those things make me happy, so it's all good. Current day deposit box standards, you need to have the key. Oh, and the name on the account doesn't match that. Yeah. Although I'm sure that happens though, that people want safety deposit boxes under aliases. Like I bet a lot of rich people do that. Yeah. A warm blanket and some rains. Yeah, I like rain sounds as well, Pratik. Yeah, and fire crackling is also really good. And actually one noise that I fall asleep to a lot is like car drive, like the sound from like the interior of a car, you know? I don't know. Car rides make me sleepy. So, okay, let's wrap up. Thank you to everyone who has been hanging out during this read. We are not ending yet on Twitch. We probably won't go super late, but we'll go for a little bit longer on Twitch. But we are going to wrap up the YouTube stream now. Thank you to everyone who watched on YouTube. As you know, I'm working towards the partner program on YouTube. And we are getting closer to the goal for the first level. There's 2 levels of partner program. We're making some progress. Oh my god. If we get 1 more subscriber, we'll hit 400. The goal is 500. We're at 399. So, if any of you have not subbed yet to the reading YouTube channel, that would be amazing. We are also, we're just over a third of the way in terms of watch hours. So, anyway, yeah. Okay, so I will be back on Thursday. Thank you all for hanging out. It's awesome to see some return faces on YouTube. That is so great, so exciting. Yeah. All right, come on over to Twitch if you'd like to hang out for a little bit longer while we do some triggers, but it's not going to be a long stream tonight. Otherwise, maybe I'll see you on Thursday. Okay.